Good morning. This is the continuation of the general meeting. We need another 5 minutes or so to get ready on our side, so stay tuned. Good morning for the people who have just joined. We still need 3, 4, 5 minutes to get the stack ready, and then we will start. Exactly, Eric. The paper ballot's really throwing us off, especially the ones which were not clearly signed and marked. Well, further just reminded me that last year we were early and I had to make the announcement twice. So I guess over 2 years we will have a good average. And no, Eric, still mine. I have another year. Well, depends on if the rest of the board kicks me out as chairman, fair enough. But otherwise, it would be my problem another year. Rob, I'm wondering the same by now. The good part is it is one resolution and 3 slides. So as soon as we have them ready, at least I can do them in 3 minutes. Yeah, we actually should do that next time, having a little betting and voting round, so people can do side bets which one actually turns out to be the right one. We do good karaoke, yeah, as long as it's not me singing. Yeah, Eric, that would also be a good idea. And then calling it democracy and moving on. Robert just asked me if I can actually say to who I'm answering when I make random statements to myself. I think that would be boring. And yes, I talk to myself. Oh, Marco is suggesting that actually the person who had the voting result was killed in last night's mystery murder dinner. That's also a good idea. So I just got a message. Let's see. Ah, okay. The NCC kind of indicates I would have the results in like 3, 4, 5 minutes. Let's see if that is true. Now I feel like a YouTube star, reading random questions and answering them. Michael is asking if it is normal that we show the results here in the plenary rather than in a dedicated room, and the answer is yes, we did that in the past as well. Because the results are open anyway and we publish them. So what I usually show here is 3, 4 slides with the voting results, and then the exact numbers and some more details are sent by the NCC in the next 1 or 2 days. So this is very normal. Oh, Brian suggests the PC will take over and pick a result if it goes past 10:30. So that gives me another 2.5 minutes. Good. I have to disappoint all the people which are voting for Kahoot. We are not doing that one. This said, the NCC just told me I will not have the results in the next minute to actually announce them. So we have to delay that a little bit. Apparently, we are talking to Big Pulse right now, and I hope I can talk a little bit about this later, what the holdup was. But we are moving the announcement most likely to the end of the closing of the plenary. I think we make another statement here then if that would not be the case, and then I hopefully have them. That means the general meeting is not closed and still open, but at least I'm handing over back in time that the plenary can start, so the plenary doesn't have to choose for us what the results are. Really sorry about that. We'll come back to you after the closing plenary, and we see if we can make an announcement there or shortly afterward. Good. Thanks a lot. Then, sorry for that. It was as thrilling for you as it was for me. So with that, talk to you soon.
Okay.
Right. So I think we're just declaring the result now, Francisca. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
make something up. Okay. Okay. Cool. Good morning. Good morning, lovely RIPE 83 people. And my T-shirt arrived today. It's rather lovely. Just gonna say, you know,
Oh,
modeling.
wow. Now I want one too. Let's see.
Yeah. But good morning to the closing plenary after what has been a great week of virtual meeting. Insert obligatory, we all hope for hybrid in the future again soon comments, which I'm sure we'll be making a lot this morning. So we have two presentations this morning, but before we do that, just briefly in regards to the PC elections, which we mentioned on Wednesday and was in the email. We didn't have a lot of people. We had two people who stepped forward beyond the PC, and both of them were on the PC already. And it's great that they wanted to remain and continue to contribute. But we had two seats, we had two people. So I will say who those two people are now in one moment. But I do want to just say that, you know, we're hoping that this is not something that becomes a regular thing for lots of obvious reasons. And we understand virtual meetings are strange. I think there's probably several RIPE Labs articles or something brewing on that. But the PC are going to take this away, or we're going to think about, you know, the reasons this happened. And we're very, you know, open to input from people at pc@ripe.net on why maybe you don't think people stood or you didn't stand or whatever reason yourself, and see what we can do to reinvigorate that engagement. And as we all said, hopefully a physical meeting will help, or a hybrid meeting will help with that as well. But the short answer to who left the PC and then is back on again is Dmitry Kokmaniuk and Alexander Azimov. So Alexander was our ENOG representative, and there will be a new ENOG representative. So Alexander is now one of the elected members of the PC. So thank you for that, and we shall now move on with the plenary. And our first presenter this morning, speaking about DNS openness at some, actually it's not too ungodly hour of the night, I think, in Australia at this point in time. You know, I think, as I said earlier, the return to physical meetings, it's so Randy and Jeff and George and all of the people from non-European time zones actually get to wake up and go to bed at reasonable hours. But Jeff Houston from APNIC talking about DNS openness. So please, Jeff, take it away.
Thank you very much. Click, click, click. Why am I talking about the DNS? Well, you and I don't live in the internet that we built. We don't live in the internet that, you know, uses addresses and routing. We live in a world of CDN access networks. We live in an internet where, upwards of certainly more than 3/4, possibly 80, 85% of all the traffic, all the volume delivered to end users comes from a data center close to you and close to me. And so routing doesn't matter. Addresses don't matter. You and I could both share network one. And as long as your data center is different from my data center, no one would notice the difference. So what matters is namings and reference. It's the name system that is the glue. That's all we've got left. That's actually what defines the internet these days. And so the DNS is even more important than we thought. It's kind of the one piece of glue that actually keeps all this together these days, because we broke addresses. We're still waiting for V6, and V4 broke years ago, and kind of, oops, that wasn't a good thing. And we don't send packets around the world end to end anymore. Part of the issue with NATs and everything else is we broke that. And so to make the internet blindingly fast and to scale with all those billions of users, we built data centers. And because we live in a world of abundance, and computing and bandwidth wise, this is an amazingly abundant world, routing doesn't matter. It's all about the naming system. So the openness of the DNS is really a super critical thing to think about. I wish I knew of the better way of advancing these slides, but it looks like it's manual. So what do we mean by openness? Well, maybe it's more about, well, is it open insofar as it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what equipment you use, you get to see the same thing. It's open for anybody to access because it's one system. And that's what openness means in this context. But if you think about that, that was the DNS. The reason why we built this system was, if some of you might remember, we were circulating versions of hosts.txt all around the planet. And this is the late 80s. And everyone had a different version of that text file. That didn't work. And so the DNS was meant to be a system where we all saw the same name system, same answer to the same query, irrespective of who you were. And so it didn't depend on who you were asking, what equipment you had, what platform, nothing like that. The answer didn't depend on the origin of the information either. It was always going to give the same answer. The whole idea of the DNS was incredible consistency. So if consistency is really what we mean by openness, well, that was the DNS. So, is the DNS open? Well, yeah, of course it is, right? Why are you asking this question, Jeff? I'm like, that's just crazy. Well, there's a point because that's only true in theory. In practice, that doesn't happen. Doesn't happen for me, doesn't happen for you. If you live in China, facebook.com gives you really weird answers. There are certainly names in the UK that just won't resolve. America, Australia, where I live, India, Russia, you name it. For all kinds of reasons, in all kinds of locations, some names just won't resolve. No, they're just not there. So it isn't the same DNS everywhere. And in some cases, your poor, impoverished ISP is so desperate for money, they went and sold NX domain from their resolvers to a search company or two. And instead of you saying that name doesn't exist, they tell you, well, this search engine will tell you what names will exist. Come to our search engine and we'll give you all the answers you want. I used to work for Telstra and they tried that for a while too with, predictable results. But it's not uncommon and it probably still happens. And of course, there are folk who make a feature of not answering names. Quad 9 makes it a feature. Now, it's true. The names they're not answering are basically associated with malware and nasty work. And it's probably a good thing. But it's not what the DNS was meant to do. Whether you figured out it was good or bad was not the DNS's problem. It was meant to be someone else's problem. So the DNS has been used for all kinds of purposes for which it isn't designed. And the issue then comes, the DNS isn't the same everywhere. Where you are and what you're doing gives you different answers. Now, is this a problem? Is this a problem? The DNS is kind of, well, to you, it's this answer, to you, no, sorry. Well, generally not. I'm like, wasn't it the Peace of Westphalia? I'm like, you Europeans should know, 1648, that talked about the monopoly of violence inside land boundaries. You know, nation states have a sovereign right to make rules, you know. And so in some ways, if this is a DNS rule in my country, then it's a DNS rule. And you know, Quad 9 is not regarded as a new incarnation of evil. On the contrary, it's a good thing, because quite frankly, the ways in which we get duped and which malware enters our system are so many and so various that having a bit of help is actually probably a good thing rather than a bad thing. So in general, you know, we think this is okay. It's only really a problem when it starts to get used as a lever in someone else's fight. I'm like in Australia, they managed to convince the local regulators to ban the piratebay.org. Who did that? Well, the IPR holders, because obviously only naughty people would look up that site, and they're only there to steal content, aren't they? So let's ban it from the DNS. But you know, even that is just a sideshow, as ineffectual as it is, because everyone just goes and uses an open resolver that doesn't do that kind of censorship. So, you know, in some ways it's just a sideshow. So it's not really a problem. And so in some ways, consistency isn't really the key question here. Let's dig a bit deeper and talk about what we mean by openness. Well, we have sort of these definitions in the internet, which I think was actually built in a world of openness as a response to the previous incarnations of networking, which are closed vendor-based. And so the internet was living the dream of open systems interconnection, which of course failed miserably, the whole OSI architecture. But from the 1980s, open was big. Open meant vendor neutral. Open meant to be openly specified without any kind of IPR encumbrance. There were meant to be implementations as open source, you know, and if you look at our name servers in the DNS, they'll answer anybody, which is commonly used as an attack vector, but they're designed to answer anyone. They're designed to be open and promiscuous. And the DNS information is openly available. If it's in a zone file, a DNS server will give it to you. Subtle qualification, some folk, you know, like .com and .net will not tell you the entire contents of a zone all at one time. And so the entire collection might not be available, but each individual thing that's there, you can ask for it. And if it's there, it'll tell you. And the queries, the responses are open. So in some ways, it's all open, and that's a really good thing, except for that last point, because DNS queries and responses being open, when we're talking about the surveillance economy and surveillance capitalism, which is the world we live in right now, this is a massive problem. This is turned against us viciously, because openness is actually a phenomenal weakness. Because if I'm going to signal my intent in the next couple of seconds, if I'm going to say this is what I'm going to do, just look at my DNS. Because no matter what I'm going to do in the next second or two, the DNS will tell you, because I've gone and looked up its name. So if I could see your stream of DNS queries in real time, I can tell you what you're going to do. And if I could edit the answers, I could stop you doing it. And so in some ways, this openness can be viciously manipulated for fun, profit, and evil. And sometimes you'll see all three together. And I always like this, a remarkably prescient view from XKCD, and even more prescient when you realize that 30%, 1 in 3 roughly, of the internet's, what is it now, 3 or 4 billion users send their queries to Google. 1 in 3. What an information stream that is, unparalleled. So in some ways, you know, this openness is actually a liability. Let's dig a bit further and see what's going on there. If you're not familiar with the DNS, this is the kind of 5-slide head-spinning summary. The DNS takes human names and converts them into IP addresses, right? So simple thing, I want to get to Google, send the question, what's the IP address for Google, into the DNS cloud. The DNS cloud sends back an IP address, send your packets to this address, right? Easy stuff. And so in some ways inside the system are sort of dedicated parts of this, the end user part, the DNS resolver engine that orchestrates the querying system, and a whole bunch of DNS servers that have detailed knowledge of certain parts. And so if I'm looking up a name about Google, there is a server that knows about Google and will answer it. The DNS resolver's task is to figure out which server to ask based on the query. That's a whole lot of text that says exactly the same thing. Time is limited. I'm moving on. See, you all knew this anyway. And if you didn't, well, you know, read the slides afterwards. It won't make you any wiser, but, you know, it'll be amusing. The issue is, though, that those slides reflect a view when the internet had about 3 users. And now that it has about, more than 3 billion, what we've been doing in the last few decades is actually just scaling. Everything is scaling. And so it's not resolvers, it's resolver farms. And it's not even just resolver farms. We have anycast constellations, common front-end load distributing systems. All of this stuff is now built on hideously complex infrastructure. And, you know, this is a mildly simple attempt to try and put it all there. But the DNS is now, because of scaling, hideously complicated with a huge amount of handling just to cope with the query load, because we're doing trillions of queries a day. But even that infrastructure view, that view of DNS engines isn't really the DNS. And when we talk about openness, it's not really about the infrastructure, because the DNS is a namespace, it's a registration framework, it's a distributed database, it's a protocol, it's a signaling medium. It's all of these and more. And so when we talk about openness, and when we go back and look at markets, then it's not a single market. There are many markets inside the DNS. There's even a market for DNS query logs. And so how can we talk about openness when the DNS is all of these things, and they all have very, very different characteristics? Some of these markets are well established, some are highly regulated, some are just complete failures. What parts of these are working well, and to what extent are they failing? Well, okay, let's take a market view of openness and try and figure out what themes we can use to talk about the DNS to actually try and answer that question. Is this market working? Is it open? Is it sustaining the internet and allowing it to thrive? Or are we dancing with disaster? Time is limited, your time, my time, and there are so many things in the DNS. DNS is privacy, DNS is the control element, trusting the answers, namespace fragmentation, rendezvous tools, abuse, cyber attacks, centralization. All of these things are relevant topics, and that's a huge agenda. And while, you know, I could happily talk about this all day, I've got about 10 minutes left, and quite frankly, we're never going to do that. So I'm just going to take 2 topics and look at them very quickly and talk about how they should have worked and they didn't. Can you trust the DNS? Of course not. Most good attacks start with perverting the DNS, whether it's through fragmentation attacks, through cache attacks, cache poisoning, whatever, whether it's through attacks on the registrar system to actually get the delegation changed over to the evil person. You know, all of these things are possible in the DNS. And so you'd think, because we rely on the DNS so much, that having a trustable DNS would be in everybody's interests. And the real question is, how well are we doing? Well, the way we do this, of course, is DNSSEC. We use the awesome power of cryptography and digital signatures. We sign everything. It should be impossible to lie. Why? Because all the answers can be validated against the original intent in the zone itself. If the signatures match, it's real. If they don't match, somebody is manipulating the DNS. And so we can look at the metrics of this, and we find that who does DNSSEC validation? Yay, Sweden. Yay, Finland. Yay, Saudi Arabia. Yay, Somalia. Yay, New Zealand. Yay, nobody else. Why not in the UK? Why not Mexico? Why not Australia? Even Spain? Just don't. And so in some ways, although it seems like an awfully good idea, only 25% of users are actually protected with DNSSEC. And not even they're protected. They sit behind resolvers that do the validation. Nobody, almost nobody, just one or two minor loonies like myself, do validation on the end systems. And they won't resolve badly signed names. Everyone else, yeah, it's not a problem, is it? And so why not? Well, technology. Large responses, DNS, it's a mess. It takes time. And quite frankly, we count our milliseconds in millions, if not billions of dollars these days. And so in some ways, DNSSEC is a failure because while everyone wants it, quite frankly, no one's willing to live with the downside of taking more time, taking more effort, and introducing more fragility. And so while it's a really, really good idea, and users would want it if they knew they wanted it, it's market failure. Users don't actually pay for queries. So you can't say, look, if I pay, will you validate the answer for me? It's kind of, you don't have any choice. And I don't have any choice in what I query for. I just click URLs. I don't care if the name's signed or not, neither do you. And quite frankly, although everyone benefits, the benefits and the costs are so indirect and misaligned, nothing happens. There's an odd coincidence that the number of users out there who do DNSSEC validation and the number of users that send their queries to Google's open DNS system are about the same. And see why, can't you? Because they're the only ones left actually doing it. No one else cares. Let's move on to Google then and look about this open market for DNS resolution. Healthy market, busted market. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't pay for DNS name resolution queries. My ISP does it for me, and I don't pay them extra. And so in some ways, you know, no matter what goes on, they get the same money from me. Why should they spend more money on a good DNS? And so in response to that, we saw the open resolver effort appear. And there were various folk. It started with Open DNS, but then along came Google, then Cloudflare, of course, Quad9, TWNIC runs one, Yandex runs one. There are a whole bunch of them all over the place. Newstar runs one. Microsoft tried for a while. It might still be there. I don't know. The problem is, how do you make money out of it? Because while it would be good to sell a query log, everyone looks at you if you try going, I'm sorry. In this privacy-sensitive world, selling DNS queries is frowned upon. Big frowny face, don't go there. And so these open resolvers run the success disaster issue. So open resolvers are a market failure unless your name's Google. Everyone else uses their ISP, but their ISP is not motivated to make it go any better. I still pay them the same amount of money whether they spend zillions of dollars on a good DNS system or nothing. And so DNS is Mr. Cost. Why should I spend more on cost? And so the DNS is actually fatally broken in that economy. There's a massive resistance to change in the ISP market. So all of this DNS infrastructure is stuck in a past that no one is motivated to fix. And so it's broken. Even DNS privacy, DNS over TLS, and DNS over HTTPS are basically looking like being yet another market failure. But if we stop looking at the DNS as one thing and look at it as something we can shatter and pull into little pieces, you start to get a different view. Because there are folk who have money and agility who actually don't want to upgrade every CPE on the planet, but want to improve their bits of the DNS. And they're the application folk. They're the folk who actually drive content. They are the content of CDNs. And those CDNs and those application folk want to drive an entirely different service and move at a pace that the rest of the infrastructure, including the ISPs and your crappy CPE DNS forwarders, are unwilling to do in the next decade. And so, like we've seen before in these kinds of fights, where one group want to move quickly and the other group is saying, oh, life is hard and I've got no money, the folk who have money and want to move spend their money and move. And they don't try and bring everything else up. They don't wait for everyone else to make the investments. They just do it themselves. Application-specific naming services are a really very, very imminent outcome here, because the folk with the money, the folk with the motivation, and the folk with the resources, who's the $2.5 trillion company in this world? Oh, that's right, it's Apple. Who's the other one? Oh, it's Microsoft. Oh, it's Amazon. Oh, it's Google. Oh, it's Facebook. None of these build infrastructure per se. They're up at the content and application space, and they're impatient, and they have money, and they're just going to do what they need to do, and they're not going to wait for everyone else. So in some ways, pushing the DNS up into that space, not as a single cohesive infrastructure, but as a naming resolution service for their naming universe, is not only inevitable, it's entirely logical. And that's where we're heading. We're heading with an inevitability of a brick from the 40th floor. Sooner or later, it's going to hit the ground. It's just going to happen. Because over the last 20 years, as we've tried to scale the internet, we've actually failed to scale it the way we dreamt it. This is no longer an end-to-end peer network. It lost that when we started to build the first 100 million users. And by the time we got to the first billion, again, we really are in scaling hell. To make this work, we pushed everything out to the edge. We pushed everything into distribution systems that replicate content in an abundant world. And so the DNS is swept up inside all of that shift into application-centric service. This is a totally different network. And to think that we can hang on to this single DNS, this unified namespace, when everything else is being swept up in this dramatic change in the entire architecture of the internet into this world that is driven by content, then no, it's not going to happen like that. And so if we ask, is the DNS open? The answer is, well, today, at this time, yeah, okay, it's open. Tomorrow? Nah. Because it's just getting too hard to keep this together. The network we're building and bringing it up into this application world is being tugged in so many different directions at once that there's no one left to try and keep it together. The only thing that orchestrates in this deregulated world are markets. And when markets fail, when markets don't signal orchestration, but offer rewards to folk who strike quickly and strike in their own direction, which is what is happening, that's when you get fragmentation. That's when you get the breakdown of a cohesive system into something that is completely different. And that is where we're heading. So if that's a new version of openness, yay, but I don't think it is. I'm not sure what we're going to call it, but it's certainly not the name system and the cohesive environment we were used to. It's going to be something entirely different. Who's in charge of this? Gee, remember Google, 30% of users that use their resolution service? Yeah, looking good. I think we've got a few time for questions. Thank you very much. I'll hand it back, Francesca.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, actually, we are quite well in time. So if anyone has questions, please go ahead and ask Jeff. For now, I only see discussions in the chat. Yes, there is a question. Lars Lehmann from NetNode asks, comment, Jeff, you are probably right. I would argue that none of the fundamental pillars of the internet was designed with a market-driven environment in mind. Yeah, that sounds...
Wow, that is such an amazing statement, because in some ways, when we deregulated the monster of telephony, do you remember them? All those national telcos. The internet was the poster child of deregulation and competitive forces. All those entrepreneurs effectively did 50 years of technical innovation in the first 5 years. The internet was the poster child of deregulation. This was meant to be the victory of markets. It's just 20 years later, it's all turning to ashes in our hand. But, you know, we had dreams. We seriously thought this was going to be so much better than what it was. And I think the issue is in all of this, it's really hard to make deregulated markets work at the scale that we're asking of it. And the skews are always there. And when we look around now to find the control mechanisms, we find that we're pushed all of this debate and topic 10 years ahead, or maybe 20, of our social institutions. Regulators, governments, all these meetings about technology are finding it hard to even understand the terms, let alone the points that are of interest. We did this before in the 1880s in the Industrial Revolution. We created monsters like General Electric and JP Morgan, and then tried for the next 30 years to rip them apart because they just moved too fast. We're doing it again, everyone. We're just doing it again. So yeah, deregulation was meant to be an asset. It's again turned a bit bad. Oops.
So I see a theme for your next presentation coming up. Okay, is there anyone else? We have a new question. Daniel Karrenberg, RIPE NCC. Isn't the internet we dreamed of still here? Is it not just a smaller scale subset?
Oh, look, at some point when I was trying to do voiceover, whatever it was, IP engineering, when I was working in Telstra, we realized at one point that we were spending about 20% of our engineering cost, all of these resources. And the most money we could ever expect from moving voice over the internet was fractions of a percent. And, you know, it was always cheaper to just buy more bandwidth and ignore the problem. In some ways, if 85% of your money is a last mile access network, 85% of your traffic, all your business, why spend a cent on this larger internet, on routing, on the difficult bits? And that's the problem that's confronting us. In some ways, leaving all of this to the inter-data center problem that is collectively Facebook, Google, and Amazon, and so the rest of us don't even have to worry about it, is actually what's going on today. And even that little bit left, Daniel, is being closed down because it's just uneconomic. And so now we're finding access-only ISPs out there and access-only customers out there. And that's kind of what we're training ourselves for. So I don't share your optimism, unfortunately. And I'll say that with a smile, because what else can I do?
Okay, so I actually have to correct myself earlier on. Daniel was asking with his hat of Guild of IRR Chief Scientist, and I think then the question is in a little bit different context. Next one is Vesna as a cyber citizen. Jeff, what do you think of using governing of the commons principle by Elinor Ostrom for keeping the future internet or DNS open? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, look, I'm going to go back in history and talk about the Gilded Age for a second, because what happened in America was a rush of industrialization that turned an agrarian society, a little bit of slavery involved, into an entirely different society with massive dislocation, huge urban populations, large dislocation. What floated to the surface were a bunch of unprincipled exploiters. Do you remember them? Andrew Carnegie, Mr. Rockefeller, and their ilk. What they did after they became obscenely rich was to spend their next efforts in inventing a future. General Electric's around today, JP Morgan, Esso, Standard Oil, still here. And so in some ways, trying to think that there's a way out of this mess, when the Googles of this world have got all they need out of today, they're now building their tomorrow, is really where the problem is lying now. And like the folk of the 1890s in the US, they are building a century of domination and trying to understand how to accommodate that without even the enthusiasm of a US Congress and their Sherman antitrust bill. And the efforts of today's regulators with GDPR is kind of nipping at the ankles. It is so ineffectual, it's laughable, because it doesn't get to the core of the issues here. And this is what I said, that when you get the movement that's so fast And so far in advance of all the other institutions, we're struggling to find how to talk about this and how to actually engage with this as a problem, as an issue that talks about when Google control 92% of all searches all around the planet. Are Google defining our language? Are Google defining how we think? What's going on here when all of that is private? These are deep questions and they're deeply disturbing. We've spent the last 10 years basically building a network that's scaled by a factor of 10 billion. That's a phenomenal achievement. We've spent all of our time and energy doing that. We didn't have enough time to look around at the side effects of what was going on and why we were scaling so quickly. And now that I think there's a little bit of time for breathing, and it's sort of, geez, this isn't what we bought. This isn't what we wanted. But how do we get to a different room? And that, I must admit, I can't answer. I really don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I agree. Given like my background in the research world, we always had this discussion, and like nobody has the answers right now. So I think we have a lot of interesting discussions coming up. We have a question by Blake Willis from Zayo. So DNSSEC works better over IPv6 since fragmentation and firewalling are less awful than IPv4.
Yeah, right. No. It's not even a v4, v6 issue. The issue with DNSSEC is quite frankly an economic issue. It's an issue where no one is actually motivated to do it. The browser folk don't want it because it takes too many milliseconds. The folk who are signing don't want to do it because they think it's one more thing to go wrong. And quite frankly, validation in your local recursive resolver is like outsourcing your security to the evil guy down the street. I'm like, where's the security in that? If you really don't trust the DNS, you've got to do it yourself. Oh, great. Where's the tool for me to do it myself? Gee, that's a question. I wish I had an answer. So in some ways, it's not a v6, v4 issue. It's kind of, we've taken a fraction of the technology and going, problem solved, when it wasn't. And I think that's part of the issue here.
We have Vesna again. As a parent of young people, do you have hope that the new generations will be able to solve problems we've allowed to happen or created ourselves? So give us some future optimism here.
Oh, God. I mentioned 100 years when I talked about the Gilded Age, and that's what, 3 generations or 4 generations? We have created a long-term monster, and it's going to take us quite some time to figure it out. Various government efforts, and I see there's an EU one to build a competitor to Google, a government resolver. Love your work, guys. Just great idea. It's going to take some time, and unfortunately, one generation isn't going to solve this. Part of I think the issue is trying to find a balance between public and private, and we've kind of walked away from the world of libraries, walked away from the world of public services, because I think they did get corrupted. The telephone monopolies were no fun, but a world that's purely private is no fun either. And trying to get that balance right has always been an effort for us. But it's that, to my mind, is where the balance needs to be struck. And that means that a lot more of us need to work in the public sector, a lot more of us, because they need our help, much more than Google needs our help, to be perfectly frank. Because to have these conversations, you can't have one group sucking up all the bright minds and everyone else struggling to keep up. So, an ad for government work. Yay.
I think all of us have had discussions with people from the public sector, and I think there is a lot of potential that we also could at some point help out there. But, well, who of us actually does it?
Well, they need us. They need to understand the other side of what's actually happening. And quite frankly, this is a technology-ridden space. We spent the last 10 years building a whole dictionary of terms. We bastardized English. What we talk about when we talk routing or DNS and security, no one could call that any language other than technobabble. And so pity anyone else from the outside trying to come to grips with this. The babble made us exclusive, put us in a sealed room where we thought no one was looking because no one could understand us. I think we did the world a disservice when we did that. Just saying.
Just saying. Okay, we have
Just
3
saying.
questions still in the queue, so I have to read a lot of novels, and I'm closing the queue for now. The next one is by Dimitri Kochmaniok from UACCTLD. In the brave new world, or maybe franchise privatized world, think Snow Crash, would we have compartments of DNS that do not talk to each other, or can DNS be used for bridging islands?
Oh God, it's all going to separate. I'm sorry, they're all little islands and there's no bridging of islands. Quite frankly, we're going to rebuild the mess that was the 1980s. And some of you are old enough to have been there, and I was too. And my God, it was horrible. And yes, we're going to do it again because cooperation is such a dim light in such a frenetically, disastrously competitive world where Facebook is so paranoid that its whole privacy argument is not about securing me. They don't give a stuff about me. What they care about is leaking the valuable information about me to Google, to Amazon, to Microsoft, or Akamai, or anyone else. Their real concern is the folk that when they look over their shoulders. That's the true privacy debate for these folk. And so, quite frankly, islands is what you've got to get used to, because that's what's being built again. What was that early BBR one? Oh, there was some silly bulletin board in America. We're doing it again because we're good at it.
So next one is Raymond Yatton speaking for himself. Do you think that people using Google for their lookups do this because their ISP's DNS server are under regulation and modified, or more due to the DNS quality provided?
Almost nobody picks Google by themselves. I've done a lot of work looking at this, and most of the work and people using Google is because their ISP was so lazy that sending all the queries to Google was cheaper. And that's why Google has a market share that's so enormous. Their ISPs are lazy. People, end users, people who aren't you and me, right, don't twiddle with the knobs because you'd kind of break things. So very little of this is a conscious choice. Google gets used because ISPs find it's a cheaper way out than any other solution. So this is the race to the lowest common denominator. Who wins? Google wins, unfortunately.
Okay, one
Sorry, was that brutally honest?
Yes, thank you for that. I think that's what we ask you to. One last overarching question from Alex Yehush from Two Corvus Incorporated. Are you basically saying that we are in trouble now because we never really solved the monopoly power dynamics issues we allowed to emerge during the Industrial Revolution, and that as a society, we've never really moved very far beyond that world? People, please use quotation marks and sentences, more than one.
You know, it's a really good question. I could take the rest of the morning talking about it, but think about this. The Americans were very, very concerned about huge monopolies, and they did a couple of antitrust actions in the early 1900s. It caused a massive depression in 1911. So Congress got scared. Okay, good. Then along came Ford and GM, who were the biggest industrial monopolies on the planet. They made 80% of the world's cars in the 1920s. They earned the US so much money that no one was prepared to touch them, certainly not the US. And so everyone else was saying, well, yeah, we like cars. I wish we could make our own, but we're going to buy them. Part of the problem is that taking on these giants seems to be a case of self-harm every time in some way or another. And so we find it very, very difficult to strike a balance when this happens. The lesson from history is it really needs very careful and informed discussion in society about how we want to deal with technology. And when we have this kind of discussion and debate pushed to the edges, and the IGF, for all of its intent, has been sidetracked, I think, into more small sideshows rather than confronting the elephant, and they are literally elephants in our room, then we're never going to make progress. So, you know, in some ways, this is a painful discussion that we need to have, but having it's difficult. But thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, because I think it's great to actually talk about it for once. So thank you all.
We really do that more openly. So thank you, Jeff. That was a really nice round of discussions. And now we are leaving the look to the future, and we do a little bit look into the past week. Next up is Menno, and he will give us a breakdown of all the technical things that we experienced in this meeting week. So tell us how it went.
Yeah, so this is a short report on how the week went. First of all, the tech team. These are the people behind the scenes. There has been a slight change from last time. Razvan decided to leave the tech team. And he's still working with us, but he has a lot of duties on his plate, so he decided to leave the team. And we found a great replacement, Andre. In the bottom left, you see him. He joined the team, and yeah, we're very happy with having him in the team. Also, you see Martina is not in the picture anymore. If you remember her from previous meetings, Martina left us. She left the RIPE NCC, unfortunately. And hopefully next RIPE meeting, we have someone else in the team to replace her. Then let's go to the next slide. Meet Echo. This is the platform that we're using. As you can see, yeah, this is the 4th time we're using it, and we're quite happy with it, actually very happy with it, and also with the support we're getting from the Meet Echo team. Every meeting, and there are new issues, and they help us with quickly solving those. Some examples are, for example, audio issues. On the Monday, we noticed reports from people that they couldn't hear any audio. Apparently, this was due to some changed behavior, because deep browsers get updates, yeah, almost daily sometimes, but quite frequently, and some behavior was changed in the autoplay policy. This is a policy that basically helps the end users not to get spam, like websites automatically playing videos and audio. But yeah, the change in behavior made it that also in Meet Echo, audio wouldn't play. There was a quick fix made by the Meet Echo team, and they implemented it on Monday evening. So on Tuesday, those Windows users didn't have these issues anymore, fortunately. Then there was also another audio issue, and that was for Safari users. They had the issue that when they tried to enable the microphone, they got an error saying audio track closed, and their microphone wouldn't actually work. This is a bug, and yeah, you can find the URL down here to look into it, but hopefully this also will be solved before the next RIPE meeting, and I'm sure that there will be new issues by then for us to look at. During the anti-abuse, there was a discussion also about two-factor authentication. And what was cool to see is that yeah, during that session, we saw 8 users log in and enable two-factor authentication on their SSO account. So we think that's probably because of that session. That's really cool. And yeah, if you haven't done so yet, consider doing the same. The stenography. This is pretty cool. So what we've been using for a long time is stream text for the stenography, and stream text was always IPv4 only. And in 2012, we started sending them emails asking to see if they can enable IPv6. Back then, it wasn't possible because their cloud provider didn't support it yet. Not so long ago, they moved to another cloud provider, And as you can see, they now do support IPv6, and this is pretty cool now, because the website, ripe83.ripe.net and meetecho.ripe.net, now is 100% dual stack, so you can enjoy it also IPv6 only. Then the next slide. Some statistics. You see here the statistics for the whole week of participants. The YouTube statistics are missing because YouTube is very slow with giving us the statistics. It stays behind. But here you can see at least the Meet Echo and the live stream. You see also the live stream was quite, there was quite some more participants on the live stream on the Monday. This could be due to that audio issue for certain Windows users. And then on Tuesday, when that was fixed, probably they were all back on the Meet Echo and didn't need to use the live stream. And then one of the last slides here is the browser and OS stats. This is very similar to the last RIPE meeting. And yeah, nothing special in here. And finally, an IPv6, some IPv6 stats compared to the last RIPE meeting. We see a small decline, went from 52% to 50% of the participants coming in over IPv6, but still a lot better compared to RIPE 81. That's it for my tech report. It was it went quite smooth this week, and really hope that next time we can do a hybrid meeting, and hopefully the report will also contain some more interesting things how that went. But let's see what the future holds.
Yes, indeed, and thank you so much. As has been commented, there is nothing faster than the NCC technical team, and I see how quickly the videos have been going up and all of the rest. And it's fantastic from my point of view to see that conversations during the anti-abuse working group actually have an effect on people's network security. Yay! But we've got a couple of questions, and obviously if anybody has any other ones. So Remco van Mook, yes. How many other large-scale users does the Meet Echo platform have? These bugs seem pretty generic.
I don't know. I know that they do the IETF. Maybe if someone from Meet Echo cares to comment on this question now, yeah, go ahead. But otherwise, I can say about these issues that, like I said, some issues pop up only a week before the meeting because of an update, for example, in the browser. That makes it difficult for us to spot them.
Okay, and going back to the 2FA piece, Blake Willis from Zayo, thanks for all your efforts here. I'd love to see an NCC access 2FA option that doesn't require a mobile app.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
Just drop that there as. That's more of an NCC services.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm sure that they're looking at this as well. So it's noted. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, folks? Don't think so. So, Menno, obviously you're the representative here, but thank you so much for your team, all the work that's done to make this. As I think I was tweeting, virtual meetings have many issues, but none of them are down to the platform here. This is still by far and away the smoothest and most engaging virtual meeting that I have participated in. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're still. Are there one last one? Robert Check from ETES. Are there bandwidth statistics for Meet Echo too?
I'm sure there are. I don't have them in here. Yeah, I'm sure there are, but I don't have them in this presentation. Let's see if next time we can add something like that as well. Yeah.
And next time, hopefully, well, maybe next time in Berlin, we'll all be there on our laptops in the room, logged into Meet Echo. It'll be a whole thing. But remember, walking up to the mic improves your step count. Thank you very much, Menno.
Thank you.
And so with that, that is the end of this bit of the plenary. So it just remains with me to say thank you to everybody who submitted talks to the plenary, who presented, to all of you for your engagement with those talks. We will obviously, there'll be new call for papers and things, but please rate those talks so we know what you liked. And I mean, obviously, while there was nothing you didn't like, I'm sure what you found better or worse from this meeting, so we can, as part of the PC, can craft RIPE 84. And so we're now going to hand over back to the RIPE chair team to close out the meeting. But thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you in Berlin, but definitely seeing you one way or the other at RIPE, whatever type of hybrid meeting we hope that RIPE 84 will be. So Miriam, Neil, are you out there?
I am.
You are. Baton handed over. Thank you.
I'm not sure. I think you probably need to be staying in as chair or something, because I see I am the speaker. So please don't just drop off.
Well, I wasn't going to go anywhere. I was just going to kill my own. No, I'm gone now. This bit's boring. I'm sorry. I was going to hang around.
Thanks, Frank. I just see I'm the speaker, so I don't know exactly how the permissions work otherwise. So yes, so I'm going to share some slides. Let's see, closing plenary, that's about it. Share. Yes, I saw somebody noted in chat that looking at hearing the technical team present, or hearing Menno present, this usually marks the end of a RIPE meeting week. That's true. I mean, there's just a few bits left. So here's some numbers in the closing plenary and some updates I want to give you at the end. Again, my name is Miriam Kühne. I'm the RIPE chair. I think we also have Neil O'Reilly here in the background, the vice chair. You've probably seen us during the week. Just some numbers here. We had in total 1,126 registrations, and you already saw the viewer statistics in Menno's presentation. There were 400 viewers per day on average. We had 240 newcomers in total, which is great. And also some of them were also quite active during the week on special chat and at the mics. We had 66 participation signing up to the childcare, which I think is fantastic. They were learning, kind of playful coding. I had some playful coding exercise. I wonder how many non-kids actually participated, because I think that was actually a fun activity. And I want to put here, kind of as a regular update, the report from the trusted contacts. The trusted contacts did not receive any reports during the week related to violation of the code of conduct. There were some small annoyances like on the chat, and some that were quickly picked up by the appropriate people, either the technical team or the RIPE NCC, and they were solved. And I hope you all had an enjoyable meeting and didn't experience anything bad. Here are the stats again in a different representation, the online viewing, as you see during the week. And here are some stats. The country distribution that we usually show you also during the closing plenary. You see it's mostly kind of Western European countries represented. I think we have to do some work for the next meetings to make sure we are more inclusive also for other parts of the RIPE region. But this is what it is right now. Here we have all the pictures of the working group chairs. If you pay close attention, you'll see some changes since the opening plenary slides. There are some some new working group chairs. I think I have them on a separate slide. Let me just kind of move over. Thank you to all the chairs for chairing all these working group sessions during the week. I think there were some really interesting discussions going on, some good topics covered. There are two outgoing chairs. That's Alireza Waziri in anti-abuse. He decided not to continue, so Brian Nisbet and Tobias Knecht will be continuing as co-chairs for the anti-abuse working group. And then David Knight, co-chair of the DNS working group. His terms ended and he had to step back. So we'll have some new chairs. We have some re-elections. Bijal Sangani is going to continue as co-chair for the RIPE NCC Services Working Group. Achilleas Kemos and Julf Asingius are going to continue as co-chairs for the Cooperation Working Group. And then we have two new faces in the team. It's Marcos Sanz as a third co-chair for the Open Source Working Group, and Moritz Müller as a third co-chair for DNS Working Group, replacing Dave Knight. So welcome back, or welcome to the team. Looking forward to working with you all in between the meetings. Then, of course, the RIPE Program Committee put together a fantastic program, I think, up until just now. You know, the last presentations were really great to have this discussion. There are two Brian has already announced that early on. There were two outgoing, there were two seats open, and Pavel decided to step back, and Dimitri is kind of re-elected in a way, kind of, you know, continues. There were no re-elections, but continues to be on the PC, as well as Alexander Asimov, who used to be the Enoch rep, as Brian explained. So they have a full team again for next time. We also had elections for the Number Resource Organizations Numbers Council. There were 4 candidates, and Sander Stefan was elected at quite a margin as the next candidate to replace Nurani Nimpuno, who was the third member in the Numbers Council up until now, together with James Kennedy and Hervé Clément. So we have three members again in the Numbers Council, and welcome Sander. I'm sure Sander's going to do a great job with all the background he has in address policy and networking. So congratulations, Sander. Right, back to congratulations. We have a number of prizes. I'm looking forward to having like physical meetings again where we can actually hand over prizes on the stage. But this is all going to be virtual. All the winners will win T-shirts that they will be sent, and that will be sent to them. So the meeting team will contact you all. We had a raffle amongst newcomers who actually got up and participated at the mic. And so we have 3 winners that we pulled out of that. That's Tristan Bruns, Syed Marashi, and Carla Wagner. Then we also had, have prizes again for the first registrations that go to Hervé Clément, Hermann Lindströmberg, and Elmar Binz. And the presentation ratings were also pulled out every day. That's Sebastian Becker, Heike Schwingelhorner, and Marco Ditri. And they were a number of Kahoot winners every day. We had the Kahoot quiz, and the winner were Jabba Bodor, Rolf Wichertjes, Christopher Hansen, Christoph Chen, and Alexander Markovic. And there's one more today, right after the closing plenary. So there's one more chance for you to win a prize, and after the Kahoot today. Thanks again to our sponsors, AM6 Entity, IPv4 Mall, Prefix v4 Broker, who help us to further use and improve the MeetEcho platform, and also the spatial chat social platform. So thanks to you. And last but not least, we would really like you to give us your feedback. Menno has already mentioned some little glitches, but in overall, from our perspective, or from the RIPE NCCs, and also from my perspective, I think the meeting platform and MeetEcho works really well. And I also thought we had a great program, great content, but obviously, I don't see everything from my perspective here. So please give us your feedback, anything you've liked or you didn't like, any improvements you would like us to make for next time. We'd love to hear from you. Yes, we've been saying that during the week. Save the dates for Berlin in May. We so hope so that we can go to Berlin. We've been postponing that for like 3 years now, or 2 years. This will be the third opportunity. If you can go to Berlin, I'd love to go back to Berlin for a RIPE meeting. So I hope to see you all there. Dates are already fixed. And in the end, just so in case you have any questions, so obviously we have a little bit of time for questions, but also if you want to reach Neil or myself directly, you can contact us at these email addresses here. But wait, there is more, I think. Yes. I would really like to thank again the RIPE NCC staff and team, the technical team, and also the administrative team. But this would not be possible without one person, and that's Alexandra Voss, who has done a great. She's there in the background, in the office. We have Ollie handing over a gift to Alexandra. Alexandra was on her own out of a sudden, but Martina decided to leave in September, and she pulled off a great meeting and led the team and all the efforts putting together this RIPE meeting. And I would really like to thank her for putting together a great event. So if I stop sharing, and maybe we can see them. I stop sharing myself, and then maybe we can see Ollie and Alex there.
Well, we just did the handover, but we can show our faces again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Very sweet.
Thanks, Alex. Great to see you. And now I think I need to hand over back to Christian Kaufmann, or I don't know if there are any other activities planned.
Oh.
Hello. It is a good question if there are other things planned. So is everyone else done? Still no singing.
We're just figuring that out, Christian. I mean, if you have your numbers, do you want to do your numbers? And then...
No, I don't have numbers.
Okay, well, do you want to do your what's happening?
Any other content which is desperate to be presented, be my guest.
Okay.
The chances that I have numbers.
Right.
Or are there any questions? I mean, I've been rushing through this a little bit. I don't know if you have any questions. I mean, this was kind of the regular stuff, but just let me know.
Kurt is asking if I'm in the library. It is actually not a virtual background, so it was quite expensive. And it is my own. Have I read them? No. Some of them.
Okay, we do have a question.
The background looks well educated. Yeah, the background is educated, not so much me.
Martin? Oh, nope, that was... sorry, Let's just... Okay, yeah, no, there are people who should have speaker powers now who should exercise them if they so wish to give CK a bit more time to get those numbers, he hinted.
Yeah, and I will explain that a little bit as much as I can, but every minute I have more time, I might have more informations. Otherwise, I take over. That's fine as well, but I was told rather 12-ish, so I'm not sure if there's anyone else. Otherwise, I'm doing it.
I'm seeing people with speaker powers.
The results will come in Berlin, yeah, physically. So.
Okay, we're gonna. Yeah, so apparently there will be some people from the shadows any moment now.
Okay, cool.
So if you want to kill your video and audio, and then we'll step
I will.
back.
Yep.
Cool. I think they'd be used to this by now, huh?
Oh,
Oh. What have they done this time?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. I'm also no idea what I'm doing right now, so that all works out.
Ay.
Right. I've been handed this deck of slides. I'm just going to walk through it. I have no idea. So, welcome to the secret working group, RIPE NCC, somewhere. Whether that's the comfort of your own home, the library, the office, or on a plane. I mean, everything's possible these days. Today's date is March 636, 2020. And let's go. The secret working group is secret, which means no pictures, no Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram, no Snapchat, no WhatsApp, and most certainly no Splat. And if you still don't know what Splat is, that is a proper secret. Right. One thing that I do want to address, which Christian failed to, is that the secret working group would like to apologize for the delay in validating the GM vote results. We know who's responsible, and there will be a conversation. So yes, I wanted just to get that out of the way. Next up, homework. So a couple of the sessions this week have taken to a format that's in the interest to save time during the session, to basically give everyone who wants to participate in the session a homework assignment, which is watch all the presentations beforehand. And this is a short verse about that. Jan.
When I look at the RIPE presentation, it's a super surprising sensation, but to watch in advance really doesn't enhance and spoils the anticipation.
Yeah, it's I've heard some people commenting about homework and not having time for it. To me, it feels like I'm back in university, at least. Kind of interesting. Move on. Hiding in plain sight. The secret working group has often been accused of hiding in the shadows, but really, everyone is not paying attention. There's the spatial chat where we were very clearly present in quite significant numbers. So next time you want to find the secret working group, just go have a look at spatial chat. And there's an important announcement that we need to make from the secret working group. As we all know, secret working group has evolved over the years from so much more than just a few cheeky limericks at the end of a meeting. And it is all encompassing, and it's so much more than what it used to be. So, quoting the Greek philosopher Anaxagoras in 450 old BC, which is not before COVID, if it has to be in the name, there's probably something wrong with it. So I can spend a lot of time talking about this, but I would like to introduce the new name of the secret working group, Ratio, because it just makes sense. And this session from now on will then be called the Secret Working Group by Ratio. Moving on, the task force. We are not amused. So the database working group had a task force to figure out what the purpose of the database is. To which I would say a database is there to store things in a way you can also retrieve them again. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the purpose there was, but here we go. So again, a quote from history: "Those who do not learn from history are doomed to kittens," by Winston Churchill. Let's look at what the database task force has come up with. The database task force report mentions that the purposes of the RIPE database are providing authoritative and accurate registration of internet number resources, provisioning the reverse domain name system, publishing routing policies by network operators, facilitating internet operations coordination, and enabling research on and analysis of IP networking in the region. To which I'm going to say, where's the bloody poetry? And this might come as a surprise to you, but poetry, the extract of the secret working group, has for years been in the RIPE database, for longer than most other things actually. So, and it's in use today. So here's a proof of recent use. This was added to the RIPE database in July of this year. A fantastic haiku. It's not DNS. There's no way it's DNS. It was DNS. And I have a suspicion that this might have been put in there by Jeff Houston, but I have no idea. And actually, the RIPE database working group actually adopted these objects at RIPE 48. And and as an example of how long ago this goes, here's a slide from that presentation at RIPE 48, the example of a poem object, which also describes how old this stuff really is. This mentions people who have been in my seat before, and yeah, it's if you look at the changed, which still had meaning back then, it shows that this is from 1997. It's pretty old. And actually, if you dig down in the archives, sort of the oldest what we can find is a poem about barley. I mean, this really feels like the Middle Ages. In Berlin, some barley he ate with his hand straight from the plate. Oats, he says, and I'm right. So come on, let's not fight. From Russian, it is hard to translate. Which is apparently about Daniel Karenberg's culinary expertise. I have no idea of context of this thing. This is again buried in the dust of the database somewhere. And to close this off, poetry has actually been in the RIPE database for longer than IPv6 and has been implemented a lot quicker than that. So I would strongly encourage the task force to revise its report, or there will be consequences. No place like localhost. Jan.
Here is what we all want it to be, but it's shrinking like snowfall, you see. 1 to 7/8 will be put on a plate and carved up, leaving nothing for me.
Right. This is, I guess, about the current IETF draft about repurposing 1 to 7/8. No place like home. I would call it. And then it's time for some culture. And as tradition requires, culture in the secret working groups comes in the form of a sonnet. And the title of this version sonnet is "We Have to Stop Meeting Like This." Nigel.
The fourth RIPE meeting in the virtual world has raised a troubling thought in my mazed brain, and brings a worry woken and unfurled which chases sleep away time and again. What if not only meeting, but those there are virtual and a frick of bits weave, participants so silent do they wear their electronic hearts upon their sleeve? And those presenting, do their slides appear from artificial depths where sentience flows and ebbs from core to core, my deepest fear, which with each passing minute ever grows, is that I'm also virtual, and we all are flickering shadows on a virtual wall.
I am not a robot. So then on to our next meeting. And with our next meeting, I mean the secret working group's next meeting is going to be in Berlin, whether there's a RIPE meeting there or not. So with that, I thank you all. If Christian has a result at this point, he's more than welcome to come and talk to it. But I don't think that the secret working group is quite done with speaking to responsible people, but you never know. But here's Christian.
Hello. We should make very clear that I'm not part of the secret working group. So you probably
are
should
you?
Or are you?
So to be honest, if you are done, you should disappear here. Otherwise, that looks very suspicious. Thank you. Sorry for that. Not that people here really getting confused. Nigel doesn't want to leave. Here we go. Good. So back to the GM. Apparently GMs are a very floating thing these days. I do not have results, but let me talk a little bit about that, as much as I know right now and what are we doing as the next steps. So usually what we do is we close the voting at 9 o'clock, and then we get the results sent, and then people have enough time to produce some slides, and then I can present them. So this is usually how it works, and the hour is more than enough to put a couple of slides together. This morning, what we got, and now we've got to take these information with a grain of salt as much as I understand them, and we will clarify them a little bit later in more detail. Is we got results, but the results and the form look different than before. So when we send an email back and communicated with Big Pulse to understand why is it different, and if they can confirm the results and everything, we haven't received that voting result yet, or the confirmation, I should say. With that, we then decided that it is probably better to really understand that instead of announcing an interpretation of them. And that was the holdup. So we are talking to them now, and they looked into it as well to send that confirmation, and I haven't received it, which means I can't really announce anything. So what does that mean for us? A couple of things. Number one, the GM stays open, and I get an award for the longest GM ever. Second, we sent out an email today for the announcement and the closure of the GM, which we currently plan for 12 o'clock, I guess, Central European time, next week, Monday. But you will see it in the URL. Then the plan is to announce it, explain that a little bit more, and then close the GM. As usual, the idea is also to send out the raw data and the rest of what we have as an explanation. Either I will explain it Monday, or we send it out later as well, so that everybody understands what exactly has happened. And with that, there is not much more I can say right now. Not sure if there are any big questions, but don't want to go too much into every detail because, to be honest, I don't have them. This is pretty much the state I have. Any pressing parts? Oh, damn it. Nigel kept it open for a week. Here we go. I'm not even getting a reward for that. Okay. Anyway, with that, I am postponing it till Monday, most likely 12 o'clock, and you get an email from the NCC, and then you will know more. And with that,
Christian, CK, just one question.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Read it out to you if you'd like, or you can read it yourself.
Carsten asked, or Carsten Schiefner asked, will this go to the members only or to the RIPE list in full? That is a good question. The announcement was usually, if I'm not mistaken, made on the NCC announce. If I'm not mistaken, then I guess everyone who is subscribed to that one. But you see the results usually anyway on the web page as well. So I think even for non-members, the results are visible. And the good part, probably Carsten refers to the invite. Well, as the invite for the announcement as right now is open to everyone who was registered to the conference, to RIPE 83, I would assume we are sending it to exactly the same people again, so that it feels exactly like I would have announced it now. So Carsten would also get an invite. That's at least my expectation. The glitches and the hiccups. So Carsten asks basically if we send it to the members only or the RIPE list in full. I think we will send it to the RIPE list in full till someone tells me this is either not impossible or legally not advisable or whatever, but that would be the part. And I think we usually do that with the announce of the results. For me, it's always a little bit difficult to say because I'm all of this mailing list, so I don't differentiate when they come to my inbox, so sorry for that. But yeah, I think we send it to all. So that everybody understands what just has happened. Good. Carsten has his answer. And otherwise, no other questions. Good. Then I postpone the GM and give the microphone back to the NCC. Thank you.
So speaking of homework, I think we have some homework for you as well, because today, and this is welcome everybody to our last RIPE 83 Kahoot quiz. My name is Gerardo Vivier, and I am your quiz master. We are broadcasting today from my home, the awful truth. Yes, my home. And the topic of the final quiz is RIPE 83. Were you there? It is sponsored today by Prefix Broker. So let me tell you once again how to play the game. I'm going to show you 11 questions, 11 in total. Yes, a prime number. And to those questions, there will be 4 possible answers. The person who presses the correct answer the fastest gets the most points at the end of the whole round. Are you crazy? No, the crazy one will be you at the end. So let's see if everybody can sign in. Join us. And let's start playing this little game. Oh, yeah! I'm going to give you a couple of seconds more because I see that everybody wants to sign up. Yes, I love that. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I just said that. Let's start. Okay, Kahoot, last one. RIPE 83, were you there? And the first question is, of course, according to Alexander Isavnin, one does not simply A, take over the world, B, quizmaster a Kahoot, C, present at RIPE meetings, or sovereignize the existing internet. And of course, any of these answers could be correct because you don't just simply quizmaster a Kahoot, you know that. But the right answer is sovereignize the existing internet. That's right. One does not simply do that. Let's check the leaderboard. Miyasudev at the front, BN, StuckyMax, Windows 95, and DK379. On to our second question. What, as per Max Franke, is a drawback of any eyeballs? Only works if happy eyeballs is present. It rejects should I, you know, should I. All eyes are on it, or it's not very selective. So which of these four is the drawback of any eyeballs? And the right answer is, boom, only works if happy eyeballs is present. We heard that in his presentation. If you didn't, go back to the recording and watch it. Leaderboard says Miyasudov took fall, BN at the front, StuckyMax, Job 15562, Windows 95, and Andy D. On to the third question. No! What are some people stockpiling as per Marco Schmidt's presentation? Is it RIPE Atlas probes? Is it Bitcoin? Is it RIPE meeting t-shirts? Or is it IPv6 allocations? I know I'm stockpiling on software RIPE Atlas probes because I'm going to create my own big measurement network. Oh, no! No, I'm not going to do that. But one of these four is the right answer, and the right answer is IPv6 allocations. Once again, if you didn't see the presentation, what do? Oh, yeah! You watch the recording. So leaderboard says StuckyMax at the front, Job 15562, Andy D, BN, and might be DFK. He might be DFK. We don't know. Which name won during the Future of Technical Training BoF? So during the BoF Future of Technical Training, there were some names thrown around. So which one learned? Was it microlearning? Was it ant education? Was it 4-bit learning? Or was it bite-sized learning? That's right, Turkey. One of these four was chosen, and the most preferred one was microlearning, though I did like ant education too. Leaderboard says Job 15562 at the front, BN, might be DFK, Joe 18, and Cron 2. Question number 5. According to Randy Bush, what will you have if you are running BGP origin root validation and dropping invalids? Will you have some broken modems? Will you have some very annoyed BGP neighbors? Will you have some extra bandwidth? Or will you have some dirty floors? What with all those invalids dropping here and there? So if you are running BGP origin root validation and dropping all the invalids, what will happen? You will have some very annoyed BGP neighbors. Job 15562 still at the front. BN might be DFK, Joe 18, and M107 coming in. So question number 6. When did the first meeting of the IoT working group take place? Was it during RIPE 76? Was it during RIPE 50? Was it during RIPE 73? Or is this a trick question because there is no IoT working group? I am mind blown. So is it a trick question? Is it RIPE 50? Is it RIPE 73 or RIPE 76? And there you have it. During RIPE 76 was the first meeting of the IoT working group. Job falling down one step, Joe 18 taking the lead, BN, Andy D, and StuckyMax. Question number 7. Which BGP Looking Glass project presented by Annika Hanig in the open source working group began at the RIPE 73 hackathon in Madrid? Almost didn't have any breath left. Ouch. So, was it called Alice? Was it called Dumbledore? Was it called Gandalf? Or was it Zorro? One of these four was the name of the BGP Looking Glass project presented by Annika Hanig. And it was called Boom, Alice. Somehow, some way, that was the right answer. Joe 18 still at the front, Job 15562, Andy D, BN, and Stucky Max. Question number 8. You can apply to be a host for RIPE NCC's hosted DNS, posted DNS, roasted DNS, or ghosted DNS. One of these 4 is the type of DNS that you can apply to be a host for. Again, posted DNS, roasted DNS, ghosted DNS, or hosted DNS. And the right answer is, boom, hosted DNS. Somehow, this looks like it's going to be Joe 18, Job 15562, BN, Stucky Max, and Andy D. Question number 9. Who got murdered during the RIPE dinner? Was it Marita? Was it Alistair? Was it Chris Salmon? Or was it Ulka? One of these 4 MCCers was murdered during the RIPE meeting. At the RIPE dinner, of course, which was during the RIPE meeting. So, who was it? Marita, Alistair, Chris Salmon, or Ulka? And we all know it was Ulka. Rest her soul in peace. Joe 18 still at the front, Kron 2, Natesel, Job 15562, and BN. Question number 10, there's only 2 left over. Who had to reorganize their hotel room to be ready just in time for the Q&A of his pre-recorded presentation? Was it Jeff Houston? Was it Robert Kistelecki? Was it Massimo Candela or the Quizmaster? So, who had to reorganize their hotel room to be just in time ready for the Q&A after the pre-recorded presentation? If you were there, you'll know it was Massimo Candela. He had to really shuffle that room. I saw it happening. Joe 18, Kron 2, Job 1562, BN, and Stucky Max. And people, our last question. What was probably the most pronounced phrase during RIPE 83 sessions? Was it name and affiliation? Was it, is this working? Was it, you are absolutely right? Or was it, I think you're muted? So, which was probably the most pronounced phrase during the RIPE 83 sessions? And we all know that it was, of course, I think you're muted. You should probably press that button. Let's go and check the leaderboard and see who won today's last and final quiz. Kron 2, number 3. Flitos, number 2. And number 1, Joe 18. Joe 18, you are our winner of the last Kahoot quiz. Now, thank you everybody for playing, and thank you to our sponsor, Prefix Broker. This RIPE meeting is a wrap. Once again, many interesting talks. Until we meet again, virtually or in person. You know, it's still a wonderful world.